Charleston, South Carolina, August 14, 2023 to 5:42 p.m. It was supposed to be just another peaceful summer afternoon in one of Charleston's most prestigious neighborhoods. Riverside Park Towers stood tall and serene along the Ashley River, casting shadows over the well-manicured lawns and winding walkways below. Inside its 12 floors lived lawyers, doctors, young professionals, and on the 12th floor, a single mother and her 2 children. At exactly 5:42 p.m., a blood-curdling scream ripped through the air, echoing off the marble floors and down the sterile hallway of the building's top level. Jacob Lane, a retired Navy officer who lived on the 11th floor, was sipping sweet tea on his balcony when he heard it. That wasn't a scream of surprise or pain. It was primal. It was a scream that came from the soul, he later told police. Within minutes, 911 lines lit up with multiple calls, all describing the same chilling noise. A woman's voice. Breaking, shattering, crumbling into agony. Blank. Underscore, blank. Revolving light. The discovery. Charleston police responded within minutes. Officers entered the lobby of Riverside Park Towers and rode the elevator to apartment 12B. The door was ajar. Blood had pooled at the threshold, soaking into the cream-colored rug Melissa Connors had just bought on clearance a week prior. Inside, what they found defied belief, even for seasoned officers. Melissa Connors, 33, was sprawled near the bedroom doorway, a kitchen knife embedded in her abdomen. Blood soaked through her pale blue blouse and ran across the hardwood floors like wine spilled at a dinner party gone terribly wrong. In the bedroom, the air was unnaturally still. 2 small bodies lay side by side on the queen-sized bed, Chloe, age 4, and Liam, just 18 months old. They were dressed in matching pajamas. Their eyes were open. Their skin was cool. Detective Kyle Harrington, who had been with Charleston PD for 19 years, later said, "I've worked homicides, gang shootings, even cartel cases. But this was different. The evil here was intimate. Blank. Underscore, blank. Family. Woman, girl, boy, a picture-perfect life." Melissa Connors had been well-liked. A single mom who moved to Charleston from Atlanta 8 months ago. She worked as a senior accountant for Lyle & Waters, a boutique architecture firm. Everyone described her as disciplined, gentle, and fiercely protective of her children. Her Instagram, now frozen in time, painted a picture of sunshine and scraped knees, cupcakes and bedtime stories. To help juggle work and parenting, Melissa had hired a live-in babysitter, Janelle Banks, 26. Janelle had been with the family for 5 months. She was quiet, always kept to herself, and had glowing references, or so it seemed. The children reportedly adored her. Melissa's closest friend, Natalie Ross, said, "Melissa once told me, if I ever get hit by a bus, Janelle's the only person I'd trust with my kids. That's what makes all this even more horrifying." Blank. Underscore, blank. Woman detective. No signs of forced entry. Police found no signs of forced entry. The apartment was locked from the inside. No valuables were missing. The surveillance footage from the lobby showed only one person entering apartment 12B that day after Melissa, Janelle. She hadn't fled the scene. She was still there. They found her seated in the walk-in closet, blood covering her hands and arms. She was rocking back and forth, whispering something under her breath. "I couldn't stop it. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't stop it." Janelle made no attempt to run, no attempt to clean up, no plea of innocence. She seemed lost. Her pupils were dilated, her face blank. Paramedics placed her on a stretcher and rushed her to Musk Health University Medical Center for what appeared to be a psychological breakdown. Blank. Underscore, blank. Brain. A troubled past. Within hours, local reporters dug into Janelle's history. She had dropped out of the College of Charleston in her junior year. Her academic records showed promise, but also a long gap, unaccounted for. A deeper dive revealed something far more disturbing. In 2019, Janelle had been placed under a 72-hour psychiatric hold after being found wandering downtown Charleston at 2 a.m. Barefoot and confused, she had claimed that the voices were too loud and the children wouldn't shut up. That incident was never formally charged or followed up, and it was not disclosed during Melissa's hiring process. Blank. Underscore, blank. Heartbreak Chloe and Liam. Autopsies confirmed that Chloe had been smothered, likely with a pillow, while Liam had suffered blunt force trauma to the head. The injuries were not instant. They were personal. Detective Harrington wept at the press conference the next day. They didn't stand a chance. And the monster wasn't a stranger. She was someone they called by name. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Cell phone with arrow the voicemail. In the midst of the chaos, Melissa had managed to leave a voicemail on Natalie Ross's phone. The timestamp was 5:39 p.m. Her voice was shaky, rushed. Chloe can be heard crying in the background. Nat, something's wrong with Janelle. She locked herself in the bedroom with the kids. I don't know what's going on. I'm scared. It would be the last message Melissa ever left. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Loudspeaker breaking news. Charleston in shock. By the next morning, #Justice for Chloe and Liam was trending on Twitter. Memorials formed outside the Riverside Towers, and candlelight vigils brought hundreds of strangers together. The mayor issued a formal statement, calling the crime a tragedy of unimaginable magnitude. But the question on every American's mind was the same. Why? What could make a babysitter, a trusted caregiver, turn so savagely on the very children she was hired to protect? Janelle Banks was born on November 4, 1996, in Florence, South Carolina. Her mother, Denise, worked as a home health aide, and her father, Leonard, was mostly absent, floating in and out of their lives like a passing storm cloud. From the outside, Janelle had what most would call a humble upbringing, lower middle class. But clean, stable, quiet neighborhoods, modest homes, Sunday church, and potluck dinners. But those who knew her closely would say Janelle was always different. She didn't cry when her hamster died in 3rd grade. She didn't laugh at cartoons or playground jokes. She watched people instead, intensely, as if trying to decode some language only she could hear. Her 4th grade teacher once called her highly observant, but emotionally detached. Her mother brushed it off. She's just shy, she would say. By the time Janelle was 13, things started to crack. She would lock herself in her room for hours, sometimes days. When her mother knocked, there were no answers, just the sound of muffled music or pages turning. There were no friends, no sleepovers, no school dances. Her journals, discovered years later during the investigation, revealed early signs of something much darker. I watch people smile and I don't understand what they feel. I smile too, but I feel nothing. One entry read. Another, dated March 12, 2012. Sometimes I feel like there's another version of me standing just behind my skin. Watching, waiting. Despite these early signs, Janelle did well in school. Her GPA was above average. She got into the College of Charleston with a partial scholarship for psychology, a cruel irony. In hindsight, she lasted 2.5 years. Her professors described her as brilliant but emotionally closed off. One said, she could recite a textbook, but when asked about feelings, she'd go blank, like a screen went dark. In February 2019, Janelle vanished for 2 days. Her roommate filed a missing persons report, but she returned before police could issue any alert. She offered no explanation, just said, I needed quiet. Later that year came the 72-hour hold. Charleston PD found her walking barefoot on East Bay Street at 2:08 a.m. It was cold, wet, and she was wearing a thin sundress. She kept whispering to herself, they won't shut up, they won't shut up. At the hospital, she was evaluated for acute psychosis. Doctors noted auditory hallucinations, paranoia, and possible dissociation. But her mother, Denise, refused extended treatment. She's just stressed, she insisted. She's always had a sensitive mind. Janelle was released 3 days later. There was no follow-up, no ongoing psychiatric care, no alert placed on her name, no system in place to catch her the next time she fell. By 2021, she was working odd jobs, housekeeping, part-time cashier, tutoring. Then, one fateful morning at a local park, she met Melissa Connors. Melissa was sitting on a bench, watching Chloe play. Janelle, carrying a worn paperback of the bell jar, struck up a conversation. She was polite, soft-spoken. When Melissa mentioned needing help with childcare, Janelle smiled, tucked her book away, and said she had plenty of experience. Melissa didn't know about the psychiatric hold. Didn't know about the journals. Didn't know that Janelle had never actually completed her degree. Janelle provided references, one from a family in Mount Pleasant, another from a summer camp. Both were fabricated. She used a prepaid phone and listed a friend's number. The friend, unaware of what was to come, answered as Mrs. Temple and gave glowing reviews. She was wonderful, so patient. The kids loved her, she had said. Melissa, overwhelmed and desperate for help, hired her within the week. Janelle moved into the spare bedroom on May 3, 2023. The first few weeks were uneventful. Chloe liked her. Liam cooed in her arms. Melissa began leaving them alone for longer periods, even overnight on one occasion when she had to travel to Savannah for work. Nothing ever seemed wrong, but there were signs, small ones. Neighbors later told police they often saw Janelle sitting on the balcony at 3 a.m., staring at nothing. Melissa once joked in a group text, "I think my nanny might be a vampire. Girl never sleeps." In late July, Chloe came to preschool with a bruise on her arm. When the teacher asked about it, she said, "Miss Janelle said I shouldn't talk about it." The teacher filed a report with Child Protective Services. It was logged, but marked as low risk due to lack of evidence. On August 10, 4 days before the murder, Melissa made a post in a mom's forum. "Anyone else's nanny just change overnight? Mine's been so quiet lately. Weird vibes. I might be overthinking it, but something feels off." She never got a reply. On August 13, the day before it all went to hell, Janelle searched online for how to make children sleep fast without medicine. That same night, she didn't eat dinner. She didn't come out of her room. She didn't speak. But she watched. She listened. She waited. And in the early morning hours of August 14, long before Melissa woke up, Janelle began to write a letter. Only part of it was finished. "I tried to be what she needed. I tried to be their second mother. But the screaming, the crying, the constant needing, it doesn't stop. There's something broken in me. I think it's always been broken." Then she drew a smiley face and signed her name. The autopsy reports arrived at Charleston PD 2 days after the crime. They were sealed in thick manila envelopes, handed directly to lead investigator Kyle Harrington. He opened them in silence, seated in his office with the blinds drawn and a bottle of untouched black coffee going cold on the desk beside him. Inside were photographs, diagrams, medical terminology, but none of it could soften the blow of what they revealed. Chloe Connors, age 4, cause of death, asphyxiation due to smothering, time of death, approximately 5:15 p.m., toxicology, negative, no sedatives, no drugs, no alcohol. Her body showed no defensive wounds, just small bruises on her left arm and under her chin, consistent with a hand pressing down against her mouth and nose. Her lungs were congested. Her oxygen levels plummeted within minutes. She had died quietly. She had died scared. And she had died trusting the person who killed her. Liam Connors, 18 months old, cause of death, blunt force trauma to the skull. A single blow, but strong enough to fracture the occipital bone and cause massive brain hemorrhage. Likely from the ceramic lamp found shattered on the bedroom floor. Investigators noted no hesitation. Whoever delivered the blow had meant to kill. Harrington swallowed hard as he read the summary paragraph. Both children were dressed in pajamas. No signs of sexual assault. No evidence of struggle from the victims. Chloe's body was posed next to Liam's, her hand resting on his arm, likely placed after death. Then came Melissa's report. Stab wounds. 2 to the abdomen. Shallow. 1 to the left side of the chest, deep, between the 3rd and 4th ribs, grazing the heart. She had bled out quickly, but not instantly. Investigators believe she was attacked the moment she opened the bedroom door and saw the children. The most haunting part wasn't in the report. It was the photo. Melissa's eyes were wide open, shock frozen on her face. Her body had fallen just a few feet from her daughter's feet. She had died trying to reach them. Back at the crime scene, forensic techs were still combing through details. The apartment was a mosaic of contradictions. Brightly colored toys, a fridge covered in drawings, a nursery that smelled like lavender, all painted with the grotesque overlay of blood and violence. A single detail stood out. In the bathroom mirror, someone had written in red lipstick, "It won't stop." Print analysis confirmed it was Janelle's writing. Detective Harrington called the finding a window into a collapsing mind. Meanwhile, the press circled like vultures. Fox News, CNN, local affiliate WCSC-TV, they all ran with the same headline. The babysitter slaughter. Charleston family torn apart by trusted nanny. Outside the Riverside Towers, mourners left teddy bears, sunflowers, and handwritten cards taped to the iron gate. The building's management installed security guards at all entrances. But it didn't stop the whispers in the hallways, the looks between residents, or the way children clung tighter to their parents in elevators. Melissa's sister, Rachel Connors, flew in from Portland the morning after the killings. She sat down with police to give a formal statement. Melissa had always been cautious. For her to trust Janelle, it must have taken time. She never would have left her kids with someone she didn't believe in. When shown the lipstick message in the bathroom, Rachel broke down. She always said Janelle was quiet but sweet. Said she never raised her voice. Never got angry. But I think she didn't notice how broken that girl really was. In the days that followed, detectives gathered everything they could: security footage, phone records, digital logs, browser history. They built a timeline, minute by minute. At 5:07 p.m., Melissa arrived home. At 5:10, Janelle locked the bedroom door. At 5:11, Chloe cried out. Neighbors heard it. At 5:13, a heavy thud was heard. Liam. At 5:14, Melissa texted Natalie. Something's wrong with Janelle. At 5:15, the bedroom door opened. Melissa stepped in. At 5:16, the stabbing began. At 5:18, silence. At 5:21, Janelle called 911. Didn't speak. Then hung up. At 5:24, she wrote, "It won't stop," on the mirror. At 5:31, police arrived. The entire tragedy, from the moment Melissa walked into the apartment to the time Janelle collapsed onto the closet floor, took less than 25 minutes. 25 minutes that would forever change 3 families, a city, and countless lives. When asked what struck him most about the case, Detective Harrington answered without hesitation. The betrayal. That's what stays with you. The kids looked up to her. Melissa trusted her, and she took that trust, twisted it, and turned it into something unspeakable. Janelle was held without bail at the Charleston County Detention Center. A psychiatric evaluation was ordered by the court. Prosecutors were already preparing for a high-profile trial, and for the firestorm it would bring. But in the meantime, the Connors family would bury 2 children, a mother, and a sense of safety they could never get back. The morning of August 21, 2023, exactly 1 week after the murders in apartment 12B, the Charleston County Courthouse was surrounded by television vans, reporters in crisp suits, and angry citizens holding signs. One read, "No insanity plea, justice for Chloe and Liam." Another, "She smiled while they died." Inside, the air was thick, not just with tension, but grief, confusion, and the unmistakable feeling that something irreparable had happened. Janelle Banks was brought into the courtroom through a secure side entrance. She wore an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed to a leather belt around her waist. Her hair had been pulled back into a messy bun. Her face, pale, blank, unreadable. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She barely blinked. The crowd rose as Judge Margaret Bell entered. She was sharp, seasoned, and known across South Carolina for her no-nonsense demeanor in child-related cases. Today, she stared directly at the defendant as she called the courtroom to order. The prosecutor, Assistant District Attorney Miles Fletcher, wasted no time. "We are filing 2 counts of murder in the first degree for the deaths of Chloe and Liam Connors," he announced, his voice steady and low. "We are also filing 1 count of second-degree murder for the death of their mother, Melissa Connors. All charges are eligible for life without the possibility of parole." There was an audible gasp from the gallery. Rachel Connors, Melissa's sister, sat in the front row gripping a tissue in both hands. Her knuckles were white. Her eyes never left Janelle. When Judge Bell asked Janelle if she understood the charges, she didn't respond right away. Her public defender, a thin man in his mid-40s named David Harrow, leaned over and whispered something in her ear. Then, slowly, Janelle nodded. Yes, she said. One word. Flat. Empty. The judge continued. Do you plead guilty or not guilty? Again, silence. Harrow stepped forward. Your Honor, the defendant pleads not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect. That was it. The room exploded in whispers. Someone in the back shouted. She planned it, and was immediately escorted out. Judge Bell slammed the gavel once. This is a courtroom, not a circus. Then she turned back to Janelle. Miss Banks, I am ordering a full psychiatric evaluation to determine if you are competent to stand trial. Until then, you will be held without bond. Janelle didn't flinch. As the hearing adjourned, the guards led her away. But just before she disappeared through the door, she paused, turned, and stared directly at Rachel Connors. Her gaze lingered, cold, unapologetic. Rachel's body recoiled like she'd been slapped. In that moment, she would later say, I knew we weren't dealing with someone sick. We were dealing with someone evil. Outside the courthouse, the media pounced. WCSC interviewed Ada Miles Fletcher, who kept his statement brief but powerful. We intend to prove, beyond a reasonable doubt, that the defendant acted with full awareness and malicious intent. This was not a breakdown. This was a betrayal. When asked about the insanity plea, he didn't hesitate. Insanity is not an excuse for calculated murder. We have evidence that shows she planned this. She wrote notes. She manipulated access. She waited for the perfect moment. That's not madness. That's murder. Meanwhile, defense attorney Harrow avoided the press, but released a written statement claiming, Miss Banks has suffered from untreated psychiatric conditions since adolescence. She was failed by the system long before she was hired by the Connors family. This is a tragedy, but one rooted in mental illness, not malice. The public was unconvinced. A poll conducted by the Charleston Herald 2 days later showed 82% of residents supported the death penalty for Janelle Banks, even though South Carolina's death penalty had been under moratorium for years. The tragedy had struck a nerve. This wasn't just about 3 lives lost. It was about betrayal in its purest form. A smiling young woman, trusted with the most sacred task, protecting children, had become a national symbol of horror. Social media was ablaze. Documentary YouTubers were already piecing together timelines. TikTok creators were dissecting Janelle's old Facebook posts. One video, showing Janelle holding baby Liam 6 weeks before the murders, went viral with 14 million views. Its caption read, "The devil doesn't always wear horns." Inside a cell at the Charleston County Detention Center, Janelle remained silent. She refused visitors, refused to eat full meals, refused to speak during therapy. She would spend 23 hours a day alone, under suicide watch, scribbling unreadable notes in the margins of library books. But one page, torn from a prison-issued journal, was later discovered beneath her mattress. It simply read, "She wouldn't stop watching me sleep. Chloe, she was just standing there." To the guards, it was more gibberish. To the prosecution, it was motive. To the public, it was proof they were right all along. And to Rachel Connors, the woman now raising Chloe and Liam's orphaned dog, it was fuel. She vowed to show up to every court date, every hearing, every verdict, until the woman who stole her sister and her niece and nephew was erased from the outside world. 2 weeks after the arraignment, Janelle Banks was transferred from the Charleston County Detention Center to the psychiatric ward of the South Carolina State Hospital in Columbia. The court had ordered a comprehensive mental health evaluation to determine if she was competent to stand trial. The transfer was done at 3:14 a.m. to avoid media attention. Still, someone got a shot of her being wheeled out in shackles, head lowered, hoodie drawn. The photo would later appear on the front page of the Post and Courier with the headline, "Inside the Mind of a Child Killer." She was placed in a secure wing, under 24-hour surveillance, in a padded room with a single bed, a stainless steel toilet, and no windows. Forensic psychiatrist Dr. Lena Morgan was assigned to her case, a renowned expert. Cold-eyed and meticulous, she had worked on several high-profile cases involving serial offenders and knew better than to assume what someone looked like on the outside reflected the chaos within. But Janelle surprised even her. On the first day, Janelle wouldn't speak. On the second day, she whispered, And on the third day, she looked Dr. Morgan in the eyes and said, "You don't want to hear it. Once you hear it, it gets inside you. Then it's your problem too." Morgan didn't flinch. She simply pressed record on the audio device and said, "Start, blank, underscore, blank." The interviews lasted for 7 days, 2 hours each. Transcripts filled 214 pages. On day 4, Janelle spoke of Chloe. "She kept watching me, every night, just standing in the doorway, not blinking. Liam would sleep, but she never did. 4 years old, and she was judging me." Dr. Morgan asked, "Did you hear voices?" Janelle nodded. "They were under the floorboards. I'd try to sleep and they'd whisper. Sometimes Melissa's voice, sometimes mine. And what did they say? They said, 'Clean it, fix it, end it,' over and over." On day 5, Dr. Morgan asked if she remembered the day of the murders. Janelle stared at the ceiling for a long time before answering. "I remember the sun through the blinds, the smell of peanut butter, and the sound of the knife drawer sliding open. After that, it felt like I was underwater." "Did you know what you were doing?" Janelle blinked slowly. "I knew I wanted it to stop." "Wanted what to stop?" "The kneading, the screaming, the smiling." Her voice dropped. "It was too loud in my head." Morgan noted that Janelle often switched between lucidity and complete dissociation. One moment she was describing details with clinical clarity. The next she was murmuring about shadows in the closet and invisible fingers touching her skin. Blank, underscore, blank. Medical testing showed no signs of drug use, no evidence of brain tumors, no history of head trauma. But her psychological evaluations were deeply alarming. She scored high for paranoid delusions, auditory hallucinations, dissociative identity traits, obsessive-compulsive tendencies, and signs of childhood trauma, although specifics were unclear. During one test, she was asked to draw a family. She drew Melissa, Chloe, and Liam. Then she drew herself, but her face was scratched out with dozens of tiny black X's. In one session, she said, "I thought I could be part of something, a family. I tried, but they were never mine. I was just the space between their love, empty." Dr. Morgan filed her official report on September 12, 2023. In it, she wrote, "Janelle Banks presents with symptoms consistent with severe schizoaffective disorder, major depressive episodes with psychotic features, and a long-standing personality dysfunction. However, based on her statements, actions prior to the murders, and efforts to mislead authorities post-crime, I conclude that she is competent to stand trial and was aware of the wrongfulness of her actions at the time of the offense." It was the final nail in the coffin for the insanity defense. Judge Bell reviewed the report and ruled that the trial would proceed as scheduled, with a tentative start date of October 16, 2023. Blank, underscore, blank. Rachel Connors, standing on the courthouse steps that evening, read the report's conclusion out loud to a group of reporters. Her hands shook, but her voice didn't. She knew what she was doing. She knew. And now, we want the world to know too. Inside her jail cell, when the guards informed Janelle the trial was officially moving forward, she didn't speak. She just sat there, tracing her finger slowly along the concrete wall, back and forth, over and over, like she was drawing something only she could see. October 16, 2023, Charleston County Courthouse, 9:02 a.m. The courtroom was filled to capacity. Rows of reporters occupied every available seat. Victim advocacy groups and local parents packed the gallery. Every entrance had extra security, metal detectors, bag checks, ID verification. On the courthouse lawn, camera crews set up for live coverage. National outlets had flown in anchors from New York and Atlanta. This wasn't just a trial. It was a reckoning. Inside, the atmosphere was suffocating. The trial of Janelle Marie Banks had begun. She was led into the room wearing a charcoal gray blazer, court-issued and ill-fitting. Her hair was neatly brushed, tied low behind her head, but her eyes, vacant, still, the way she scanned the room, looking at no one and nothing in particular. Unsettled even the bailiff. Judge Margaret Bell entered, the gavel slammed, and the opening statements began. Blank, underscore, blank. Assistant District Attorney Miles Fletcher stood before the jury, composed of 6 men and 6 women, and didn't waste time. Ladies and gentlemen, what you are about to hear in the coming days will disturb you. It will challenge your assumptions about sanity, evil, and trust. But I ask you to remember this. At the center of this storm were 2 beautiful children, Chloe and Liam Connors, and a mother who gave her life trying to protect them. He clicked a remote, and a slideshow appeared behind him, a family photo. Melissa sitting cross-legged in the grass. Chloe kissing Liam on the cheek. Laughter frozen in a single frame. That's what was taken, and that's what this trial is about. Blank. Underscore. Blank. The defense attorney, David Harrow, took a different approach. My client is not a monster. She is not evil. She is a deeply disturbed young woman who was let down by a healthcare system that failed to treat her, and by a society that ignored her decline. This is not murder. It is mental illness unrecognized and untreated. There were no photographs in his presentation. No warmth. Only cold logic and diagnostic terms. The jury didn't look convinced. Blank. Underscore. Blank. The first witness to take the stand was Detective Kyle Harrington. He walked jurors through the crime scene in agonizing detail. Blood patterns, body positions, the lipstick message on the bathroom mirror, surveillance footage showing Melissa returning home at 5:07 p.m. Audio from the 911 call with nothing but breathing, shallow, jagged, and then a whisper. She's not here anymore. Harrington's voice cracked as he described the children. I've seen gang violence. I've pulled bodies from rivers. But this was evil in a nursery. Then came the coroner. Dr. Shelley Kravitz, chief medical examiner for Charleston County, took the stand with a stack of autopsy photos. The judge warned the gallery before showing them. Several people left the room. One juror fought back tears. Dr. Kravitz walked them through Chloe's injuries first. There were petechial hemorrhages in both eyes, consistent with manual smothering. No defensive wounds. Time of death between 5:12 and 5:16 p.m. Next, Liam. Severe skull fracture. Massive cranial bleeding. Death likely instantaneous. The weapon? A ceramic lamp. Evidence of premeditation is strong. The lamp was unplugged, moved, and lifted before the fatal blow. Then came Melissa. 3 stab wounds. 1 fatal. She died within minutes, likely while trying to intervene. In the courtroom, Rachel Connors covered her face and wept silently. She had not missed a single day of testimony. She wore the same pendant her sister once wore. A silver heart with the initials C and L inside. Blank. Underscore. Blank. But the most emotional moment came when Dr. Lena Morrigan took the stand. She recounted her 7 days interviewing Janelle. She was aware of her actions. She used phrases like, I planned, I waited, and I wanted it quiet. There is no evidence she was in a dissociative state during the time of the murders. She understood right from wrong. Did she ever express remorse? The prosecutor asked. Morrigan hesitated. No, not in any meaningful way. What do you mean by that? She said, and I quote, I suppose I'm sorry, but it doesn't change anything. Does it? Several jurors looked visibly shaken. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Then, the courtroom held its breath as Rachel Connors herself was called to the stand. She walked slowly, clutching a worn photo in her right hand. It was the same picture shown on the first day, Chloe and Liam laughing in the park. But this time, it wasn't for evidence, it was for her. She stared directly at Janelle as she spoke. You were supposed to be her friend, her helper. Chloe adored you. Liam called you Nana. You taught them how to brush their teeth. You picked outfits for their birthdays. And then, you did this. She slammed the photo down on the witness stand. You don't get to blame the system. You don't get to hide behind words like sick and misunderstood. You killed them with your hands. You ended their lives. The judge interrupted, asked Rachel to keep her statement directed through the attorneys. But Rachel kept speaking, tears streaming now. You didn't just kill my sister and her kids. You killed something inside all of us. You stole our trust. You made the world a scarier place. Janelle didn't look up. Not once. Blank. Underscore. Blank. As Rachel stepped down, the courtroom was silent. The jury avoided eye contact. Even the defense team looked rattled. Back in her holding cell that night, Janelle sat curled in a corner, fingernails torn and bleeding from scratching the paint off the walls. She stared at her reflection in the metal toilet, the only mirror she was allowed. And for the first time since her arrest, she smiled. A slow, thin smile, as if something had finally landed the way it was always meant to. The seventh day of the trial began with a storm, not just the thunder rattling the courthouse windows, but a figurative one brewing inside the prosecution's war room. Ada Miles Fletcher stood before the jury that morning with a folder tucked under his arm. He looked confident, almost electric, and the room seemed to pick up on it. "Your Honor," he began, "the state wishes to introduce newly recovered digital evidence from the defendant's personal laptop. This evidence was previously thought deleted." Judge Bell nodded slowly. "Proceed." What followed would become one of the most chilling and defining moments of the trial. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Detective Serena Wexler, a digital forensic analyst with the South Carolina Bureau of Investigation, took the stand with a calm, no-nonsense tone. A tall woman in a black pantsuit. Her eyes never left the jury. She explained how she and her team had recovered files from Janelle's hard drive, files hidden in a partitioned volume that had been wiped clean using software called Erase Secure Pro. But as Wexler told the court, no file is ever truly gone. It just takes time to find its ghost. What they found was a series of video diary entries, all recorded late at night in the Connors apartment, while the family slept. The courtroom lights dimmed, a monitor rolled into place. The jury leaned forward. Rachel Connors gripped the edge of her seat. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Video 1. June 12, 2023 to 1:44 a.m. Janelle sits on the floor of the guest room. The light from a single lamp flickers behind her. Her hair is disheveled. Her eyes, wide and unblinking, stare directly into the webcam. "I think she knows," she whispers. "Melissa, she watches me like I'm broken glass. But the kids still think I'm normal. They cling to me. They trust me. It's suffocating." She pauses. "I wonder if she'd scream if I disappeared." The room fell completely still. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Video 2. July 4, 2023 to 2:11 a.m. This one was shot from the hallway. Janelle is filming the children's bedroom door. From behind the camera, she whispers, "They're so quiet when they sleep. Like little dolls. But dolls can't scream." A soft giggle. And then the video cuts. One juror audibly gasped. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Video 3. August 12, 2023 to 3:06 a.m. 2 days before the murders. Janelle's face is close to the lens. Her whisper is frantic. "There's something inside me, something crawling under my ribs. I keep thinking about the drawer. The knife drawer. I touched one today, just to feel it. Melissa left me alone with them again. I think this time, I'll do something about it." The jury recoiled. Even the judge blinked twice. Gripping the edge of her bench, Ada Fletcher stepped back to the center of the courtroom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this was not a break. This was not a moment of madness. This was intent, documented, premeditated, calculated, and now, thanks to her own words, undeniable. Blank. Underscore. Blank." But it wasn't just the videos. Detective Wexler also presented text files recovered from a folder labeled Dollhouse. Inside, pages of writing. Some were journal entries. Others were scripts. One entry, dated July 27, read, "Melissa always locks the bedroom door at night. But she left it open today. I could have stood over her. I could have watched her sleep. But instead, I watched Chloe. Chloe doesn't blink when she looks at me. I think she sees it. The thing behind my eyes." Another file. A list of search queries. Quickest way to suffocate a child. Can toddlers scream in their sleep? Painful versus peaceful death for infants. Do 4-year-olds remember trauma? And finally, a folder of drawings. All in crayon. All on scanned notebook paper. Stick figures. 3 of them. One tall woman with X's for eyes. 2 children, mouths open. Red scribbles over their bodies. The title, written in bold block letters. "The End. Blank. Underscore. Blank." The defense scrambled. Harrow objected to the presentation, claiming the evidence was prejudicial and lacked psychological context. but Judge Bell allowed it, stating, "The defendant recorded herself planning a triple homicide. That's not prejudicial. That's proof." The courtroom was silent for nearly a full minute after the lights returned. No one moved. No one breathed. Rachel Connors closed her eyes, a single tear running down her cheek. Outside the courthouse, news anchors were already declaring this the turning point. Twitter exploded. Hashtags like #DollhouseFiles and #ShePlannedIt trended nationwide. Inside her holding cell that night, Janelle didn't speak. She didn't move. But one guard claimed she was found lying on the floor, facing the ceiling, whispering to no one. "They saw it now," she kept repeating. "They finally saw what I see." October 23, 2023, day 11 of the trial. The courtroom buzzed with the aftershock of the Dollhouse Files. No one could look at Janelle Banks the same way anymore. The videos, the whispers, the drawings, they had stripped away any illusions of fragile innocence. If she had once been seen as a mentally ill woman lost in a system that failed her, now she was seen as something else entirely. A predator. But what came next stunned even the prosecution. Just before noon, Ada Miles Fletcher requested to recall one final witness, a name no one had heard before in this trial. The state calls Angela Ruiz to the stand. Murmurs erupted. Janelle's head slowly turned. For the first time in the trial, her face changed. It froze, then twitched, then dropped completely, as if gravity itself had betrayed her. A tall woman in her early 30s stepped into the courtroom wearing a black blazer and tortoise-shell glasses. Her long brown hair was pulled back, neat, professional, unshaken. Angela Ruiz was a former roommate of Janelle Banks. They had shared a rental house near the College of Charleston campus during the spring semester of 2018. Under oath, Angela told the court, at first, she was quiet, awkward, but harmless. Then things changed. She described how Janelle would stare at her while she slept, how she'd wake up in the middle of the night to find her bedroom door slightly open, when she had locked it. "Once, I found her in the kitchen at 3 a.m., slicing carrots, but the knife was pointed backward, toward her palm. She was bleeding, but she didn't seem to notice." Angela's voice cracked. "Another time, she showed me a picture she'd drawn of me, in bed, with someone standing over me. I asked who it was. She said, 'It's you.' But the dream version." The courtroom sat frozen. "Why didn't you report this?" Fletcher asked. Angela hesitated. "Because I was afraid of her." Angela then revealed something no one, not the prosecution, not even the investigators, had known. "A week before I moved out, I found a USB drive under the couch. It had videos, just her, staring into the webcam, whispering, talking about the fire in her chest. I deleted it. I didn't want to know. I just wanted to get away." She wiped her eyes. "But after I saw the news about Melissa and the kids, I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Blank. Underscore. Blank." On cross-examination, defense attorney Harrow tried to downplay the testimony. "You found no crime, correct? You never contacted authorities?" Angela straightened her shoulders. "No, I didn't, and I regret it every day." "Do you hold yourself responsible for the deaths of Melissa Connors and her children?" A sharp intake of breath echoed through the gallery. Angela didn't flinch. "No, she is responsible." She pointed directly at Janelle. And Janelle flinched, visibly. That moment, that tiny gesture, wasn't lost on anyone. Judge Bell called for a recess. But it didn't matter. The impression had been made. The final witness had not delivered science, or forensics, or digital trails. She had delivered history. She had pulled back the curtain on a pattern, and once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Outside the courthouse, news of Angela Ruiz's testimony spread like wildfire. CNN headlined, "Final Witness Claims Babysitter's Violence Was Years in the Making." And social media turned it into a storm. Hashtag she was always broken. Hashtag red flags ignored. Hashtag final witness. Journalists dug deeper. Former classmates, distant cousins, even a retired professor came forward. "She used to talk to herself during tests." One said, "She told me her dreams were more real than reality," said another. Suddenly, the insanity defense collapsed under the weight of its own history. This wasn't a momentary lapse. This was years of warning signs and silence. Blank. Underscore. Blank. That night, Rachel Connors posted a photo of Chloe and Liam on Instagram with a single caption. For every Angela who speaks up late, let's help the next Angela speak up before. In her cell, Janelle began pacing. Back and forth. Back and forth. She bit into her knuckles until they bled. A guard asked if she needed medical attention. She whispered, "I thought she forgot." Who? She didn't answer. Just went back to pacing. October 26, 2023, 3:13 p.m. The courthouse clock ticked like a metronome as all eyes focused on the 12 jurors re-entering the courtroom. After nearly 3 full days of deliberation, they had finally reached a verdict. No one breathed. The courtroom was packed tighter than ever. Family, media, protesters, students, survivors, even the courtroom guards stood still, hands folded, waiting. Janelle Banks was led in slowly. Her wrists were shackled to her waist. Her face was pale, her eyes dark and sunken. Her lips moved slightly as she whispered something only she could hear. She didn't look at anyone. Not the judge, not the jury, not the Connors family, just the floor. Rachel Connors sat on the edge of her seat, her palms flat against her thighs. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her teeth. In her chest pocket was a folded drawing Chloe had made months before her death. A stick figure house with the words, "Home is where mommy is." Judge Bell nodded to the foreperson. A woman in her late 50s, hands trembling slightly, stood up and unfolded the paper. Her voice cracked. In the case of the state of South Carolina versus Janelle Marie Banks. On count 1, the charge of first-degree murder in the death of Chloe Connors. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. On count 2, first-degree murder in the death of Liam Connors. We find the defendant guilty. Rachel let out a sound between a sob and a gasp. On count 3, second-degree murder in the death of Melissa Connors. We find the defendant guilty. Silence. Then chaos. Crying. Hugs. A scream from the back row, someone yelling, "Thank God," before being hushed. Cameras clicked. Reporters scribbled. But at the center of it all, the one person unmoved was Janelle. She simply closed her eyes. And smiled. The same hollow, unreadable smile she'd worn during her midnight videos. Judge Bell turned to her. "Miss Banks, you have been found guilty on all counts. Sentencing will be held next week. Until then, you will remain in solitary confinement at Charleston County Detention Center." Then, to the jury, "You are dismissed with the eternal gratitude of this court and this community." Outside, the media frenzy exploded. Helicopters hovered overhead. Reporters shoved microphones into Ada Miles Fletcher's face. "Do you believe justice was served?" He didn't hesitate. The jury saw the truth. They saw through the lies. They saw the monster behind the babysitter's smile. Defense attorney David Harrow declined to comment. He was seen leaving the building. Tie loosened, eyes downcast. The public had turned on him too, though many believed he had done the best anyone could. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Later that night, the Connors family released a statement. "Today, we found a sliver of justice in a world that will never feel whole again." Melissa was a light. Chloe and Liam were joy incarnate. Their absence echoes through every moment. But this verdict reminds us, even in our deepest sorrow, truth still matters. Rachel also posted on Instagram a simple caption beneath a photo of 3 candles burning on her windowsill. "For Melissa, for Chloe, for Liam, we heard you." The post received over 2.4 million likes within 24 hours. Back inside her cell, Janelle sat cross-legged on the floor, a tray of untouched food beside her. The lights flickered slightly, a brief power surge. The guard passing by heard her humming something under her breath. When asked what it was, she said softly, "A lullaby." "Do you want anything?" the guard asked. Janelle didn't respond. She just started humming louder. As if the verdict hadn't changed a thing. October 30th, 2023, 9:45 a.m. The Charleston County Courthouse sat beneath a slate-gray sky. The kind that seemed to swallow sunlight whole. The air was sharp, chilled with the changing season. But inside the courtroom, the weight of what was to come was heavier than any autumn wind. Today would not be about guilt. Today would be about consequence. The sentencing of Janelle Marie Banks. She was escorted into the courtroom through the rear doors, shackled at the wrists and ankles. Her prison uniform swapped for a dark blue jumpsuit. No makeup, no jewelry. Her hair was unkempt, her skin washed out, but her expression was oddly serene, as though she were walking into a funeral. And it wasn't hers. The courtroom filled with quiet murmurs. But Judge Margaret Bell brought it to order with a single bang of her gavel. This is the formal sentencing hearing for the state of South Carolina versus Janelle Banks. The defendant has been found guilty on 3 counts of murder. Today, the court will hear victim impact statements before rendering a final sentence. She looked directly at Janelle. Miss Banks, you may remain seated until you are addressed. Blank. Underscore. Blank. The first to speak was Rachel Connors. She approached the stand slowly, carrying with her a small white teddy bear that had once belonged to Liam. Its left ear was frayed from years of bedtime chewing. My name is Rachel Connors. I am the sister of Melissa Connors. I am the aunt of Chloe and Liam. She looked down at the bear, then back up. I want to explain something to you. Janelle, you didn't just kill my family. You killed their futures. Her voice wavered. You ended a mother who loved fiercely. You silenced the giggles of a little girl who sang to birds. You shattered a baby boy's laugh before he ever spoke his first full sentence. She held up the bear. This was Liam's. We found it on the floor next to his crib. You didn't touch it. I think even you knew it was sacred. She paused, tears flowing freely now. But sacred doesn't matter to people like you. Does it? Janelle didn't look at her. She stared straight ahead. Rachel's voice rose. You were trusted. You were loved. And you took that and turned it into something demonic. I hope you never breathe free air again. As she stepped down, the judge nodded at the bailiff. Next witness. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Then came Kevin Paulson, Melissa's childhood best friend, a quiet man with gentle features. He took a deep breath before beginning. We all failed Melissa in some way. But no one more than the system. Janelle didn't fall through the cracks. She lived in them. His hands trembled. I've watched Rachel try to live again. Try to laugh. Try to sleep. She can't. Because you're still alive. He pointed at Janelle. But they aren't. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Finally, the judge turned to Janelle. Miss Banks, the court allows you a chance to speak before sentencing is rendered. Silence. For the first time in weeks, Janelle stood. Her chains clinked slightly as she took a small step forward. The courtroom leaned in. And then, I don't want forgiveness, she said calmly. And I won't pretend to be sorry. Gasps echoed through the room. They thought I was part of their life. I wasn't. I was just watching. And one day, I didn't want to watch anymore. She looked at the judge, then at Rachel, and smiled. They were never yours to keep. A collective scream from the gallery. Rachel surged forward before being restrained by 2 officers. The judge banged the gavel repeatedly. Order. Order in this court. When silence finally returned, Judge Bell leaned in. Her voice, cold as stone. Miss Banks, you have shown no remorse. No empathy. No humanity. You planned the execution of a mother and 2 innocent children with disturbing precision. This court does not seek vengeance, it seeks justice. She paused. The room held its breath. For the murders of Chloe Connors and Liam Connors, this court sentences you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For the murder of Melissa Connors, this court sentences you to an additional life sentence to be served consecutively. Janelle blinked. Just once. May your days be long. And may your silence finally catch up to you. She was escorted out. No words. No struggle. Just the shuffle of chained feet fading into the corridor. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Outside, the world responded like a thunderclap. CNN. Janelle Banks sentenced to life, no parole. NBC. Justice delivered in Babysitter murder case. Across Charleston, bells rang at St. Mary's Church. People gathered outside Riverside Towers, lighting candles. Photos of Chloe, Liam, and Melissa were printed on white paper lanterns that floated gently across the Ashley River that night. Rachel Connors, now wearing Melissa's old jacket, stood at the water's edge holding the last lantern. On it, In black marker, she had written, "You are free now, I'm still here, and I will never let them forget you." She let it go, and watched it drift into the night. March 2024. 4 months after sentencing, Janelle Banks entered the Camille Griffin Graham Correctional Institution, a maximum security women's prison in Columbia, South Carolina. Block E, Cell 28. Solitary housing. No windows. 23 hours a day alone. 1 hour in a concrete yard. No internet, no personal calls, and most importantly, no children. She became known to other inmates simply as the nanny. They whispered about her but kept their distance. Not out of fear, out of disgust. In prison hierarchy, child killers were at the bottom, beneath even gang enforcers and armed robbers. There were no alliances, no protection, no favors. She was a ghost behind steel, as forgotten as she had once claimed to feel. Blank. Underscore. Blank. In her first year inside, Janelle received only one visitor, her mother, Denise Banks. The meeting was short, awkward. Denise kept her purse clutched in her lap the entire time. She didn't cry. She didn't hug her daughter. She simply stared at her for 12 full minutes and said, "You were born with so much light. And all you ever did was look for the dark." She never came back. Blank. Underscore. Blank. But the silence didn't last long. That spring, Charleston police received a package from an anonymous source. It contained 7 letters, all handwritten in small, jagged loops, and all signed, J. Each one addressed to a different journalist, blogger, or podcaster who had covered her case. One read, "They only told you one side. Ask what Melissa did to me. Ask why Chloe stared so long. You're too lazy to see the truth." Another, "They don't know what it's like to hold someone else's life in your hand like a snow globe and want to see it break." The Charleston DA's office dismissed the letters as a final grasp for attention. But the internet didn't. Reddit threads exploded. TikTok accounts analyzed Janelle's handwriting, cadence, even the pressure of her pen strokes. Documentaries reignited. YouTube series branded her the black-eyed babysitter. One speculative docuseries titled The Dollhouse Mind hit 40 million views in 2 months. She was in prison, but still very much in the public's mind. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Back in Charleston, Rachel Connors made it her life's mission to make sure no one would ever hire another Janelle again. She partnered with State Senator Becca Winslow to draft and introduce the Connors Bill. It would require mandatory nationwide mental health screenings for childcare providers, criminal penalties for falsifying references on caregiver job applications, a centralized database of flagged applicants accessible to licensed families and daycares. Opposition was swift. Privacy advocates, libertarians, even child welfare unions pushed back. But Rachel wouldn't back down. "The woman who murdered my family passed 2 reference checks," she told Congress. Because no one called. Because no one looked past the smile. The Connors Bill passed the South Carolina Senate in May 2024 with 43 votes to 7. By August, it became law in 3 other states. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Meanwhile, inside Block E, Janelle remained untouched. Unresponsive to therapy. Unreadable in evaluations. But one guard, Officer Deidre Marsh, reported that sometimes, late at night, she could hear Janelle murmuring through the walls. "Do you want me to watch them? It's okay now. They're quiet. They were never yours anyway." On March 17, 2025, Janelle was found sitting cross-legged on her cell floor, staring at a crumpled drawing of a stick figure with hollow eyes. She had scratched it into toilet paper using the tip of a bent spoon. When asked what it was, she replied, "That's me. That's always been me. Blank. Underscore. Blank." But the world had moved on. In 2026, Melissa's old blog was reactivated by Rachel, who turned it into a memorial website called The 3 Lights Project. It raised over $2 million in its first year, funding art therapy programs in underserved schools and support resources for families who hire in-home caregivers. The homepage featured a new mission statement. "This isn't just about justice. This is about prevention. We can't undo what was done, but we can stop it from happening again. Blank. Underscore. Blank." That summer, A small girl at a school in Charlotte smiled up at a visiting volunteer. Her name tag read, Lillian, age 4 inches. She handed Rachel Connors a drawing, a house, 2 stick figures, a tree, and a sun. "This is for your angels," she said. Rachel smiled through tears. "They're watching, sweetie. They always are." January 7, 2026. Camille Griffin Graham Correctional Institution. 3:11 a.m. The prison was asleep. Block E sat in darkness, save for the faint red glow of exit signs and the flickering buzz of a faulty hallway light. Surveillance cameras hummed quietly. The night staff sipped cheap coffee and flipped through paperwork, unaware that something was about to slip through the cracks. Inside cell 28, Janelle Banks sat upright on her cot, motionless. For months, she had refused phone privileges, denied visitation, never signed up for group sessions. She was a ghost, locked away, inert. But that night, for reasons no one could later explain, she was logged into the inmate phone system. At exactly 3:11 a.m., she made a call to an untraceable burner phone that was later discovered in a public storage facility in Sumter County, registered under a false name. Paid in cash. The call lasted 47 seconds. It was recorded automatically by the prison system, like all inmate communications, but flagged too late for live monitoring. The contents of that message would ignite a storm. Blank. Underscore. Blank. January 9, 2026. 2 days later, South Carolina Department of Corrections HQ. A junior analyst, reviewing the weekend's prison call logs, paused when she saw the name, Banks. J, listed under Emergency Priority Hold. She clicked play. At first, static, then breathing, then the voice. It was unmistakably Janelle, low, calm, the same chilling tone she'd used during her infamous dollhouse files. "They missed something," she whispered. "They were so focused on what I did, they never asked why she left me alone that day. Ask about the call. Ask who came to the door." Melissa knew. That's why she ran back upstairs. But she was too late. She left them with me, and she knew. Click. End of message. Blank. Underscore. Blank. By noon, the file was marked, code black. It reached the governor's office within hours. No one knew what to make of it. Was it a bluff, a delusion, or something real? The prison scrambled. Janelle was interrogated, but said nothing. Her cell was searched, no notes, no contraband, nothing unusual. Yet the damage was done. The public wanted answers. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Charleston Police Department reopened sections of the Connors case file. They began to investigate the doorbell footage from Riverside Towers on August 14, 2023, the day of the murders. And then they found it. At 4:52 p.m., 15 minutes before Melissa returned home, an unidentified man had buzzed apartment 12B. Short, wearing a gray hoodie, face partially obscured. He stayed for exactly 7 seconds. Janelle answered the door, stepped into the hallway with him briefly, then returned alone. The footage had been archived but never flagged, lost in the hundreds of data files from that week. Now it was everything. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Was Janelle working alone? Theories exploded overnight. Was it a boyfriend? A manipulator? Was there a fourth victim who got away? Had Melissa discovered something far darker than a broken nanny? On January 12th, a former maintenance worker at Riverside Towers came forward. He claimed he'd seen Janelle talking to a man in the laundry room multiple times that summer. That he once heard her say, "She's not going to be a problem much longer." He never reported it. "I figured it was some stupid fight. Not a murder plan." Blank. Underscore. Blank. Rachel Connors was devastated. "We went through everything. We thought we knew the whole story. And now she's telling us we don't?" She appeared on 60 Minutes that weekend. Whether it's real or just one last twist from a monster, she's not finished. She still wants to control the story. Blank. Underscore. Blank. But the FBI wanted answers. They opened an official inquiry titled Operation Echo Cradle. Digital forensics, witness re-interviews, voice pattern analysis. The man in the hoodie remained unidentified. Meanwhile, Janelle was returned to solitary. She refused to speak, didn't smile, didn't whisper, didn't eat for 3 days. When a prison psychologist asked what the call meant, she simply said, "It was the truth, but they won't believe me. That's the fun part. Blank. Underscore. Blank." Public opinion fractured. Was Janelle delusional? Or was she warning them of something they had missed all along? A podcast titled, "The Doorbell Tape," climbed to #1 on Apple Podcasts within a week. An investigative docuseries followed on Netflix. A congressman called for a full federal review of how the Connors case was handled. But one thing was certain. The story wasn't over. Not yet. February 2026. Charleston, South Carolina. The footage had haunted investigators for weeks. 7 seconds. That was all they had. A man in a gray hoodie. Head slightly bowed, face hidden just enough to dodge facial recognition. 7 seconds of silence. Of unexplainable presence at the apartment door of a mother and 2 children who would be dead within the hour. The working theory had always been simple. Janelle Banks acted alone. But that theory was now unraveling. FBI analysts enhanced the footage frame by frame. One technician noticed something. A faint emblem printed across the chest of the man's hoodie. The letters SAC over a stylized eagle. It took days, but they traced the logo to a local semi-pro fight gym on the outskirts of Charleston called Sandstone Athletic Club. A quiet, low-profile place. The kind where people don't ask questions, just tape up their fists and bleed. Blank. Underscore. Blank. The gym's owner, a former Marine named Derek Colby, claimed not to recognize the man. But his assistant, a younger trainer named Tina Madsen, hesitated when shown the freeze frame. She looked down, then said quietly, "That might be Gavin Dunn." Blank. Underscore. Blank. Gavin Dunn, age 32, no criminal record, former amateur boxer, lived off the grid in North Charleston. Worked odd construction jobs under different names. And most disturbingly, used to date Janelle Banks. When police ran the name through their system, a match popped up in an old hospital report. Gavin had once been listed as Janelle's emergency contact during her 72-hour psych hold in 2019. He had visited her once, then disappeared from every official record. Until now. Blank. Underscore. Blank. FBI agents tracked Gavin to a storage yard 12 miles outside of Charleston, the same facility linked to the burner phone used during Janelle's eerie prison call. When they approached, Gavin tried to flee on foot. He didn't get far. Agents tackled him to the ground and found a loaded Glock 19 under the driver's seat of his truck. Inside the storage unit, they discovered a laptop containing voice recordings of Janelle, a journal titled, Her, Him, U.S., with fragmented entries written in 2 different handwritings. And most damning, a photograph of Chloe and Liam Connors, printed, underlined in red marker, with the word, needy, scrawled across it. The FBI had their man. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Under intense interrogation, Gavin cracked. He didn't ask for a lawyer. Didn't deny the connection. He spoke like someone who had been waiting to tell the story. She didn't act alone. She couldn't. She was the fire. I was the fuse. He confessed to visiting the apartment building that day. Claimed Melissa had once confronted him in the parking garage, told him to stay away from Janelle. She knew we were still talking. She thought she could fix Janelle by cutting me out. But Gavin insisted he never entered the apartment. I handed her the envelope. That's it. What was in the envelope? An agent asked. Letters, drawings, stuff she wanted Melissa to see. The contents of that envelope were never recovered. But what Gavin revealed next chilled the room. She told me, if I have to be alone with them, it's on you. And I let her. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Back in her prison cell, Janelle was informed that Gavin had been arrested. For the first time in over a year, she spoke without being prompted. To the prison psychiatrist, she said, took them long enough. I left him breadcrumbs. But he never liked being followed. Blank. Underscore. Blank. The public reaction was swift and furious. Hashtag she was not alone. Hashtag Gavin knew. Hashtag echo cradle truth. Protesters stood outside Riverside Towers again for the first time in years. Documentarians scrambled to rewrite their endings. Podcasts updated episodes mid-season. The Connors case, once closed with certainty, had reopened like an infected wound. Blank. blank. Rachel Connors was blindsided. She sat in front of a television camera the following week. Composed but visibly broken. I believed it was over. That we knew everything. Now I don't know what hurts more, what he helped her do. Or what he let her do by doing nothing. Blank. Blank. Gavin Dunn was charged with accessory to murder, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to commit homicide. Prosecutors argued that by feeding Janelle's delusions and failing to act, he became a catalyst. The trial date was set for September 2026. Janelle was placed under stricter confinement. She stopped speaking again. But one morning, a prison guard found a note on her bed. Just a single line, written in blood-red crayon. You looked at me, but you never looked behind me. May 18, 2025, Charleston, South Carolina. 4 months had passed since the sentencing of Janelle Banks. The city of Charleston was beginning to settle back into its rhythm. Even if the scars from the Connors case hadn't faded. But then, the system blinked. A recorded phone call from Janelle's prison cell, placed at 3:11 a.m. on May 14, 2025, changed everything. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't an apology. It was a whisper. They looked at me, but they never looked at the one who came to the door. Melissa knew. She came back too late. Just 47 seconds long. And enough to unravel the case they thought was sealed shut. Blank. May 15 to 10:20 a.m. Detective Kyle Harrington and FBI liaison Marla Reese were summoned to re-examine the original building surveillance footage from August 14, 2023, the day of the murders. The camera in the 12th floor hallway captured everything. At 5:06 p.m., roughly 20 minutes before the murders, a man appeared. Gray hoodie, hands in pockets, cap pulled low. He knocked on the door of apartment 12B. Janelle opened it. She stepped outside. She handed him something, a white envelope. He nodded. She went back inside. He left. 7 seconds. Unremarkable, until now. Blank. A tech specialist enhanced the footage. There, faint but legible, was a logo printed across the man's hoodie. SAC, encircling a black eagle. They traced it to Sandstone Athletic Club, an underground boxing gym in North Charleston. A place with no memberships, no press, and no digital footprint, just sweat, fists, and silence. Blank. May 16, 2025 to 8:40 p.m. Agents paid a visit. The owner denied knowing anything. But a part-time staffer, Tina Madsen, paused when shown the image. That looks like Gavin Dunn. He used to come in a lot last year. Quiet, keeps his hood up. Doesn't talk, but I think he mentioned someone named Janelle once. Gavin Eugene Dunn. Age. 32. Unemployed. Transient housing history. No criminal record, but in a 2019 psychiatric intake form from Charleston County Medical Center. He was listed as emergency contact for a patient. Janelle Marie Banks. May 17 to 4:20 a.m. Authorities tracked Gavin to a rented storage trailer behind an abandoned mechanic shop near Ladson. He didn't resist. Inside, a burner phone, later matched to the number Janelle dialed from prison. A notebook filled with fragmented thoughts, initials, and phrases like, "They scream in colors." She said, "Today it ends." A printed photo of Chloe and Liam Connors, their eyes circled in black ink, with the phrase, "Still too loud," scrawled across the bottom. When asked why he had the photo, Gavin simply said, "I was supposed to take it with me." Under interrogation, he admitted to being at the building that day. "She called me, told me to come get her notes. She said they weren't safe with the mother around." What was in the envelope? Writings, pages from that notebook, some drawings. I didn't read them. Did she say she planned to kill them? A pause. Then, not directly, but she said, "If it happens, let it happen clean." Meanwhile, when prison staff informed Janelle that Gavin had been arrested, she didn't speak. But that night, the guards reported seeing her sitting cross-legged in her cell, eyes closed, smiling slightly. She whispered to herself, "He was supposed to be invisible. But I warned him." The story never ends where you want. Blank. Underscore. Blank. May 18th, 2025 breaking news. Charleston erupted. CNN. New figure in Babysitter murder case. Who is Gavin Dunn? Fox News. Accomplice or manipulator? Man tied to Janelle Banks arrested. On social media. Hashtag the man at the door. Hashtag Janelle was not alone. Hashtag Gavin knew. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Rachel Connors. Speaking from the front steps of the courthouse. Held back tears. For months, we've tried to believe this nightmare had an end. But now, we don't even know if we ever saw the full picture. And that's a new kind of grief. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Gavin Dunn was formally charged on May 18th, 2025, with conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice, failure to report a known threat, tampering with evidence. His arraignment was scheduled for May 25th, 2025. He said nothing in court, just stared straight ahead. But as he was led away, someone asked if he regretted anything. He muttered just loud enough to be heard. She always said it wouldn't be real unless someone else watched. Blank. Underscore. Blank. That night, Janelle carved something into her cell wall with the edge of her metal food tray. 2 stick figures. One opening a door, the other standing behind it. Underneath, she etched one final word. Witness. May 25th, 2025 Charleston County Courthouse. The courtroom was silent, not with peace, but with weight. The kind of silence that wraps around your throat. The kind that feels like someone is about to say something that can't be taken back. Gavin Dunn sat in the defendant's chair, wrists cuffed, jaw locked, eyes hollow. Across the room, seated behind the prosecutors, were the Connors, Rachel, visibly trembling, Melissa's mother, rigid as stone, and behind them, a gallery of journalists, true crime bloggers, and survivors of loss who had traveled across states just to witness this next chapter. The courtroom lights felt too bright, too exposing. Blank. Underscore. Blank. The prosecution started not with an accusation, but a sound. They pressed play on a small, wheeled speaker, a grainy, ticking noise, then static, then breathing. Gav, I need you to come. Tonight? Yes. Bring the box. The one I left in the vent. She keeps watching. Did something happen? Pause. Not yet, but it's coming. It was Janelle's voice. Clear, measured, terrifyingly calm. The room stiffened. The recording had never been submitted into evidence during her trial. It was part of a separate cache of audio files pulled from Gavin's burner phone, a backup SIM containing 6 voicemail recordings. All dated between July 29th and August 13th, 2023. Blank. Underscore. Blank. The second clip was worse. They don't stop screaming. Even when they're asleep, I can hear it. They echo in the walls. I don't know if they're real. Gav, I don't know if I'm real. Blank. Underscore. Blank. When asked why he hadn't reported any of this, Gavin responded, because I thought it was just her being dramatic. She said things like that before. Even when she mentioned death. Even when she said she heard voices. She always talked like that. It was how she survived. I thought she was just unloading. Blank. Underscore. Blank. The prosecution didn't buy it. Neither did the jury. But it was the 4th voicemail that drew audible gasps from the gallery. She came into the room again. Touched my drawer. I know she's going to find the notes. If I don't do it soon, I think she'll stop me. I think Melissa knows. And then, Janelle's voice dropped into a whisper. When the lights flicker, I'll open the door. The rest, you already understand. Blank. Underscore. Blank. That single line, you already understand, became the courtroom's heartbeat. Was it a request? An instruction? A signal? And more importantly, what exactly did Gavin understand? Blank. Underscore. Blank. The defense argued mental instability. They painted Gavin as a man with a broken compass, dragged into a delusion by a woman who had manipulated everyone she met. They presented medical records showing mild frontal lobe trauma from a fight in 2020. And brought in a psychologist who described him as easily coerced, emotionally dependent, and non-confrontational to a pathological degree. But the prosecution struck back with a phrase that froze the air. He may not have held the knife. But he handed her the map. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Rachel Connors took the stand next. Tears rolling. Voice shaking. But her gaze? Sharp as glass. We trusted her. We paid her. We let her sleep in our home. And when she did what she did, we thought it was over. But now I know, it wasn't just her hands. It was his silence. Blank. Underscore. Blank. By day 4 of testimony, the public began camping outside the courthouse overnight. Signs appeared. Hashtag she spoke he stood. Hashtag Janelle and Gavin. Hashtag Echo Cradle. True crime podcasts released emergency episodes titled The Babysitter and the Boxer. Charleston's silent witness. And yet, through it all, Gavin never cried, never shouted, never even flinched, until the 6th voicemail was played. Blank. Underscore. Blank. You remember what we said, right? The cradle falls. The mirror breaks. One walks out. One stays. Then silence. And then, good night, Gav. Thank you. His face twitched. His right hand clenched. For the first time, his expression cracked. Blank. Underscore. Blank. May 30th, 2025 closing arguments. The prosecution called Gavin the ghost in the machine. The unindicted architect. The coward who let madness walk free. The defense pleaded for context. For compassion. For a distinction between guilt and paralysis. Blank. Underscore. Blank. The jury began deliberation at 2:12 p.m. By 7:46 p.m., they returned. Gavin Dunn was found guilty of obstruction of justice. Guilty of failing to report a planned crime. Not guilty of direct conspiracy to murder. He was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison, with eligibility for parole after 8. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Outside, someone shouted, "Did you know they were going to die?" Gavin turned once. "I knew she didn't want to live." Blank. Underscore. Blank. Back in her cell, Janelle didn't ask about the verdict. She just scratched something into her wall again. This time, a doorway. Inside it, a circle with 2 lines crossing through it. A symbol of silence. Or maybe, partnership. Underneath, one last carving. He wasn't the knife. He was the door. May 31st, 2025 North Charleston, South Carolina. The sun hadn't fully risen when Detective Kyle Harrington received the call. "We have someone here who says they have a video. It's about the Connors case. It's strange. Blank. Underscore. Blank." At the precinct, a man in his mid-40s sat hunched in a gray windbreaker. His name, Robert Marsh. Former property manager at a transitional housing building in downtown Charleston, where Janelle Banks once lived before being hired by the Connors. He slid a USB drive across the table. "This was from one of our old stairwell cameras. We didn't know it was still recording. The hard drive was never wiped. I just saw your coverage on TV. Recognized her face. Thought maybe you should see it. Blank. Underscore. Blank." The video was dated March 8, 2022, a full 17 months before the Connors murders. The footage showed Janelle sitting on a stairwell landing, speaking softly to someone out of frame. Then, suddenly, a figure appeared, a second woman, blonde, thin, barefoot, wearing what looked like a hospital gown. She crouched beside Janelle and whispered something, the audio too faint to catch. But then she leaned close and said, very clearly, "If the cradle breaks, don't hold it, let it fall." Janelle nodded, whispering, "Will you be there when it happens?" The woman smiled. "I'm always watching. I never stopped." Blank. Underscore. Blank. The woman turned and walked back up the stairs. Out of frame. Never seen again. The footage ended there. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Detective Harrington immediately flagged the file. Facial recognition failed to identify the second woman. She wasn't part of Janelle's medical history. Wasn't listed in visitor logs. Wasn't known by Gavin Dunn. But in one psychiatric report from late 2021, Janelle described having recurring hallucinations of a woman she called the quiet mirror. The quote, "She watches when I sleep. Says she'll help me finish it. But only if I stop being afraid of echoes." Blank. Underscore. Blank. June 2, 2025 FBI Behavioral Unit. Quantico. The footage was analyzed, frame by frame, pixel by pixel. One chilling detail emerged. At the exact timestamp when the barefoot woman smiled at Janelle, the corner of the screen flickered, and a third shadow moved behind them. A third presence. Tall, still, unblinking, then gone. Blank. Underscore, blank. The media never learned of this. It wasn't released. It wasn't archived. It was sealed, labeled, Case Addendum. WATCHER03A. Status. Unresolved. Blank. Underscore, blank. Back in Camille Griffin Graham prison, Janelle sat in her cell, eyes open, staring at the opposite wall. She began to hum something. A lullaby. Soft, off-key. Then she turned to the camera mounted high in the corner, smiled, and whispered, "She told me we'd never be alone."